Good morning, Freedom House. Y'all look beautiful today. And doesn't my wife look beautiful? She's always so awesome. We're actually tag teaming today. She's going to be preaching. I preached last night. She's preaching this morning. I'll preach the next two services.
They knew that. That's why they all came to the 9 a.m.
The 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, we want to celebrate what's happening with our Liberty offering. And they're going to be bringing some stuff out for me. I'm going to share with you something that we're doing as a church in just a second. We are getting very close to our goal. We had a goal of $350,000.
Which was a stretch goal.
Very stretch goal for us. That's actually $100,000 more than we did last year, which is a big goal for us. And but I wanted to celebrate with you and tell you where we are right now with all of our giving and our commitments. So if you want to throw that graphic up on there for me, guys.
Ready?
We got our Liberty offering. No, the Liberty offering graphic, if we want to put that up there. And here we go.
There it goes.
And here we go. Look at this. Our goal is $350,000. Check this out.
Come on. I think we need a little music behind that.
Isn't that great? Isn't that awesome? $212,000 is where we are right now. And one of the things that we do is we're encouraging people to do lots of different things to raise money. Our daughter sold soap.
Made $360 selling soap.
Yeah, that's good. I'm like, hey, you got a job. Why don't you just keep doing it? I can sit at home and eat bonbons, and y'all can sell soap to people. But one of the things we're also doing as a church on May the 8th, everybody say May the 8th. May the 8th, we're doing a golf tournament. And so today, and next week, you have an opportunity to sign up for our golf tournament. And you can do it as a sponsor as well. You can be a part of it. It's $100 per person. That includes, it's a 4-man scramble golf tournament. So what that means basically is that even if you aren't that good of a golfer, if you're not
Come have
skilled,
fun.
just have fun. It's a great time to have some fun. It's not all that competitive in that way.
So what if I own a business? What can I do
you
as
can,
a business
if you
owner?
own a business, then what you can do is you can sponsor a hole. You can be and they have three or four different levels of sponsors. As you're leaving today, if you feel like that's what you want to do as a business, it's all tax deductible. And all of it goes towards Watoto specifically. So every dollar that we raise at Liberty Golf Tournament goes directly towards the Watoto fund that we're believing to raise $35,000. So what I thought I'd do today
scrambling in their
is
seats.
I'd show you some of the skills that I have in golf. No, I'm
nervous.
joking. I wanted to give away some stuff today because I don't usually do that, just to be honest with you, because you appreciate what you pay for. So I thought I'd hit a couple golf balls into the congregation. And if you get the golf ball, then you can. Now, they're not real golf balls. I just want to let you know. They're not real. They're plastic. But last night, we had a couple ambulance. No, I'm just kidding. If you actually catch the wiffle ball, then you can take it to the coffee shop and get a free coffee. Okay? Who wants it over here in this crowd over here? Wait back there. All right, get ready. Here it comes. You ready? All the way in the back. Look at that. See, look at that. That's a long ways right there.
Somebody better get that ball.
All right, who wants it over here in this section over here? I'm going to scoot this back just a little bit because Steve there in the front row is looking at me with a little bit of a nervous look.
And he's a lawyer. He might sue you.
And he's a lot bigger than me, and he will just bench press me. So I don't want that. Look at that, all the way in the back. Come on, somebody.
In your hands.
All right. And then one more over here. I have a little bit of a tree in front of me here, but I think I can get over the tree maybe. Who wants it in the front there? Maybe.
You weren't referring to me as the tree, were you?
There we go. Oh, nice. Very good. All right, honey, have fun.
Okay.
So make sure you sign up if you want to be a part of this. It's going to be a great time.
What kind of intro is that, man? We have been in a series called Everyday Idioms, and for those of you who don't know what an idiom is a phrase or a group of words that we use that we ascribe meaning to that aren't necessarily literal. They're more figurative in nature. So I thought I'd give you a couple of them just to help you understand, because what happens in our English language is when people are trying to learn English, it actually throws them off quite a bit, because when you do the word-for-word translation, it doesn't make sense. But in our culture, we kind of understand what it means. So that's what an idiom is. Idioms would be like duck and cover, which we just kind of did. Weaseling out of mistakes, dodging the bullet, playing the martyr, get a clue, the blame game. All of those are idioms. And I love this series because the one that I am excited to talk about today is the idiom, the buck stops here. The buck stops here. Now, why do we even use idioms in our language in the first place? I was wondering that. What's the whole purpose? But the thing that's so powerful about an idiom is it can actually give deeper meaning. Many cultures and languages, when they take one word, it can be translated into different depths. So in the English language, we don't necessarily do that. We say, I love my husband and I love a cheeseburger. We don't necessarily assign those words to different things. So what we do is we use idioms to make things more intense. So when I was a kid, my mom, instead of just saying, hey, you're being a little rowdy, she would say, you're like a bull in a china shop. Because I can get that mental picture, and it has a much more weighty, much more intense meaning if I can see a bull running through a china shop. So that's the reason that we use them. So today we're going to talk about the buck stops here, and this phrase actually became popularized by President Harry Truman. He had this plaque sitting on his desk. There he is right there. And so what he decided is when he put that plaque there, that anything that came in front of him that was laid before him, he was going to take responsibility for. The buck stopped with him. He wasn't going to pass it off to someone else, that whatever came through his desk was then his responsibility. And I love that because it just makes me think in our culture how many times we don't take responsibility for things. I love that the Supreme Court Justice Brandeis said responsibility is the great developer. Responsibility, taking ownership is a great developer. Winston Churchill said it like this: responsibility is the price of greatness. When we take responsibility for something, it is the price of greatness. And I don't want to, some of the things I talk about today, I don't want you to think that I'm talking about something lightly because I'm asking for you to take responsibility for it. Because what I've learned in life is not everything that happens is my fault. Some things happened to me in life that I didn't choose. I didn't choose the family that I was born into. I didn't choose to be abused when I was a child. I didn't choose to be sexually abused. But what I do with what happened to me is my responsibility. So it's not my responsibility or not my fault what happened to me, but what I do with that is absolutely my responsibility. So taking responsibility, it actually removes the accuse and excuse portion from our life, where we accuse someone else and we excuse ourselves. When we take responsibility, we have to look life in the face and say, no matter what comes my way, I choose to be responsible for it. You know, our society has literally become one of not taking responsibility for our actions. And I decided what I would do is I researched some court cases, and I thought you might find these interesting because it just says to me how much our society has gone away from owning and being responsible for our actions. So there are actually multiple cases right now where people have sued McDonald's because they are overweight and they have high blood pressure. And they don't take the responsibility that they ate 25 cheeseburgers and 6 milkshakes, and that's why they are the way they are. They're suing McDonald's and blaming McDonald's, and as long as they do that, they're going to continue where they are. There are lots of court cases revolving around smoking cigarettes because the company made them sick with cancer because they smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day for 25 years. There is no responsibility for, I chose this. I'm the one that smoked the cigarettes. A drunk driver is a case right now where a drunk driver was in an accident and he killed somebody. And his defense is he was drunk and he didn't know what he was doing. Well, what about when you were at the bar drinking the alcohol and decided to get behind the wheel of a car? We don't take responsibility for our actions. This one actually I thought was a little comical, but it's so true. A former FBI agent embezzled $2,000 from the government. He takes that $2,000, he goes to Atlantic City, and he gambles it away. Loses the money. He gets fired from the FBI for what he did, and he says, wait a second. I have this affinity for gambling. He says this in the court. I have this affinity for gambling, and therefore it's protected under law as a handicap. So I should not be responsible for what I did because I have a handicap. Thought that was interesting. Here's another interesting one. A school district employee was fired for showing up repeatedly late to work. So they let him go. He goes to court and he sues, saying that he has what's called chronic late syndrome, and he wants his job back. How many of you in here have CLS? Anybody? Some of the husbands are looking at the wives. I used to have CLS, but thank you, Lord, I took responsibility for it. And I know I've been healed of CLS. Some of you had CLS this morning on your way to church. You know, a little rain and you started having CLS. Here's one that, it's funny but not funny. A man, by his own admission, had exposed himself between 10,000 and 20,000 times, and then was actually convicted on 30 separate occasions for exposing himself. When he was turned down for a job as a park attendant in Wisconsin because of his lengthy arrest record, he sued on the grounds of saying, well, listen, I never exposed myself in that park. I only did it in libraries and laundromats. Do you see where our culture has become one of not taking responsibility for our actions? Those are pretty funny, but some of the things that I think about what we do is maybe we have a financial problem. We have something that we're going through, and we get mad at God thinking that he's holding back from us and that he doesn't love us, and we blame him for our lack when he's going, hey, what about the payday loan that you got to pay for the large screen TV that's hanging in your house that might have something to do with your financial problems or your bad money management? But so many times we look to assign blame on somewhere else, and every time we do, we miss an opportunity to grow. There are so many times I think through in my life, and I thought, man, I could have really blamed somebody else on that, but I had to take responsibility for my actions. When I was a little kid, we had a man that broke into our house, and back in that day, my dad was a police officer, and he happened to be a canine officer. So the man broke into our house, and our attack dog, German Shepherd, nearly severed one of his legs, and he sued my family because he broke in the night and our dog attacked him. And I just find that so interesting that we don't go, hey, I was the wrong place at the wrong time with wrong motives, and the consequences that I now have are because of my bad choices. We don't do that. We look at oftentimes as life as something that just happens to us instead of something that we ourselves are in control of. And God wants us to be responsible for our actions. I love this scripture in Ephesians 5:15. It says this. It says, live life with a sense of responsibility, not as those who don't know the meaning of life, but as those who do. I actually decided I would sit down and write out what I thought some causes of lack of responsibility were. And I decided I would pull my teenage son, my almost 18-year-old son, into this conversation. And I said, hey, I'm writing a message for this week. Give me some of your thoughts. What do you think causes us to have a lack of responsibility? And he said, let's think this through. So I have 4 things, and they are 4 things that he helped me come up with. The first one is fear, specifically fear of failure. Because if I'm afraid, if I give my all to something, that I won't succeed, I'm not even going to try at all, or I won't even take responsibility for it at all. I'll just give up before I ever even try because I'm paralyzed by fear. Fear is a motivator, but it's not the best motivator. The best motivator is love. Love will actually cause us to make the right decisions. The next one that he said, and I thought this was really good, what causes a lack of responsibility is laziness. Laziness. You know, everybody wants to be successful until they see what it actually takes. I have a picture to help us with that. I look at this and I see that everybody loves the way the foot looks in the ballet shoe, particularly when it's up on the stage and they're dancing so gracefully and so beautifully. But what you don't know behind success is when you take the slipper off, there's bruises, there's calluses, there's corns, there's broken toenails, there's pain, because when you just choose to be successful, laziness can't be a part of it. It's hard work. This is the picture of success. You know, Troy and I have the opportunity to get to talk to a lot of people in ministry. And what we see oftentimes is we see them go, hey, you know what? I love what's going on here. That's what I want for my life. And my husband says, okay, are you ready to bleed? Are you ready to get on your knees and eat some carpet? Are you ready to just give everything you have to spend and be spent for the gospel? Because if you're not ready, don't think that you're going to like it up here. Because very little of what you see up here is what happens. This is kind of like the when you go to the restaurant and you have the fine dining experience with the white tablecloth, but you don't see what happens in the kitchen where people are slipping and falling, and there's the pots that are boiling over and you're getting burned and you may have slipped and cut yourself. You don't see all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. In order to handle success, in order to be responsible, we can't be lazy. What causes a lack of responsibility? This is another one, my son, I thought it was a really good one. He said poor examples. He said a lot of people have poor examples. Think about our parents. Some of our parents were not good examples. And I started thinking about this. There are some people who I know in life that have not taken responsibility for their life, that are grown adults, because their parents are still taking responsibility for them. If you are on your own and your parents are still paying your bills, something's off. There comes a point in time where we have to take responsibility for our own life, for our own selves. And if you are the parent or grandparent and you're still paying your children's bills, something's off. Let them take responsibility for their life, because all that does is breed weakness in them and never allows them to rise up to the occasion. It's so important that we are good examples for our children. What causes lack of responsibility? A lack of self-awareness. Now, as children, we understand that we see our children, we understand that there's a lack of self-awareness there. But as we grow up, we're supposed to get off the bottle and get onto some meat and eat our meat and potatoes. But sometimes, because we're not self-aware, we can't do that. We have to part the beard and still put the bottle in, because we haven't gotten to that place of maturity where we can handle or where we can understand seeing ourselves. Because sometimes when we have to see ourselves, we have to see things that aren't so pretty, that aren't so wonderful, that aren't so great. But when we were a child, we had childish things. But now that we're adults, let me just tell you, if whatever you don't identify, you will not crucify in your life. We have got to identify things in our life so it can be nailed to the cross, and we don't have to carry that around anymore. So we talked about what causes lack of responsibility, but what would be some signs in our life if we were shirking our responsibility? What are some signs that we're doing that? Because I want to be self-aware. What if I'm just not seeing what's going on in my life? Give me some telltale signs that this could be happening. Okay, let me give you a few. The first one is constant blaming. You know, blame shifting. It wasn't my fault. I didn't mean to. I was only joking. Why are you taking things so serious? Constantly blaming and never admitting what we've done. And this actually goes back to Genesis chapter 3. It goes all the way back to the garden, because when Adam and Eve sinned and God came to Adam and Eve and said, why did you do this? The first thing that Adam said, he said, she made me do it. It was Eve. And he looks at Eve, and Eve says, the snake made me do it. So the blame game is the oldest one in history. That's why you see that your children, when, I know when my kids, they were young, they were all in the back seat, and something would happen, I'd turn on and go, who did that? Not one of them would ever go, Mom, I want to take responsibility for what just happened. I want to admit my error. I want to admit my fault and tell you it was I. I take blame for my behavior. No. We have to teach them because it's innate in them because of what happened in the garden to want to blame. But it's our job as parents to say, no, we're not going to say he did it, she did it. We're not going to play the blame game. We're going to take responsibility for our actions so all of you are in trouble. That's usually how it worked in my house. And then I thought about in Matthew chapter 25, when the master comes and he's got 3 servants and he assigns them each an amount of money. And that amount of money the Bible called a talent. So one had 1 talent, one had 3, and one had 5. And he told them, he said, go and take this money and do something fruitful with it. Well, he comes back to them later, and the one that he had given 5 talents to came back and gave another 5. The one he had given 3 to came back and gave another 3. And the one that he had given 1 to, he had buried that 1 in the ground. And when God asked him for it back with interest, when the master asked it for him back, he went and dug it up and said, well, all I have is what you gave in the first place. And when God asked him why, it's so interesting to me because all 3 of these servants had the same master. It wasn't a different master, but this one, God asks him a question, when the master asks him a question, his response is, well, I knew you to be a hard man, so I buried it. He made an excuse for why he hadn't done something with what he had been given. How many times do we do that? God gives us a gift. He gives us a talent. He gives us money. He gives us our children. He gives us a marriage. What do we do with what he's given? Do we make excuses? Do we blame? Or do we take ownership and responsibility for what he has put in our hand? And do we multiply it back? Do we grow what he's given us? Signs of shrinking responsibility, constant blaming, blame shifting. And then the next one is constant complaining. If you come home from work and you're constantly telling your spouse how bad your job is or how hard your work is or how difficult things are, what you're doing is you're looking for pity instead of change. Because they cannot change the situation, but the boss that you actually have the issue with, they can change the situation. So whenever we see constant complaining, it's always a root of, instead of addressing the issue, I'd rather just talk about my problems. Because see, if I can talk about you, then I don't have to fix the part of the equation that's me. So I can just complain and complain and complain. And I used to try to do that, and my husband would shut me down. I would want to complain about something, and he'd say, no. He said, I'm not your first stop. Your first stop is God. And he started asking me this question, and it made me so mad. So I would come to him and I'd complain about something, and he'd say, well, when you took that to God, what did he say? Really? He said to come to you. No. He didn't say that. I made that up. All right, signs of shirking responsibility, avoidance. Avoidance. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. If I just pretend, maybe I can pretend my way out of the situation, but that never works. We don't fool ourselves in the long run, and we certainly aren't fooling anybody else by pretending. Avoidance is not the way out. Shirking responsibility. Here's one that my son gave me, and I'm going to camp on this one for a little bit. It's rationalizing. My son said, Mom, as teenagers, we do that a lot. He said, I will go to school, and if I didn't do so great on a test, well, none of the other kids did either. Or if I didn't do my homework, well, nobody else did their homework either. And we dumb ourselves down to everyone else as if they are our standard and make it okay, and we rationalize. And I found there's an area of my life that I really struggled with about 12 years ago. One of my pastors, Pastor Dennis, had a conversation with me and my husband. And for those of you who are women in the room, raise your hand if you're a woman in the room. I'm going to make you uncomfortable for a second. And probably some of the men going, oh, no way she's touching this. But let me just tell you, years ago, he had a conversation with my husband and I that at first glance would seem like, dude is crazy to ever say that to her. I cannot believe he said that, but it changed my life. And the conversation went something like this. Hey, Penny, I have known you since you were 12 years old, and I have noticed over a certain period of time that you have gained a lot of weight. Okay, gulp. And I want to know what's going on with you. Are you okay? What's behind this? Is there something physical? Is there something emotional? All of the above? What's going on? And honestly, all he was doing was calling to attention what everyone else was thinking, but was too afraid to say, or maybe didn't have the guts to challenge me in. But because he was my pastor and he loved me, he said it. Now, what I could have done is I could have rationalized, and I could have come to you and I could have gone, can you believe what he said? I am a woman. I have had 3 babies out of this body. How could he? And he's a man. How could he even understand? I could have rationalized it away where, excused it away. How dare he say something to me like that? He doesn't know what it's like to have 3 babies, and he doesn't understand this, and he doesn't understand that. And I could have had you in my corner. I could have had you irritated with him too. And not only that, I could have thrown a scripture in there that says, you know what? God looks at the heart. Only man looks at the outside. I could have justified and rationalized till the day is long. But in the end, if I would have done that, I never would have changed my situation. So what I found out was I actually went to the doctor and had a conversation with the doctor and did find out there were some things that were not right. And they started trying to fix those things that weren't right. And I remember in my heart going, so it wasn't me. It was just, and the Lord was like, no, I'm not letting you away with that. Because you're a spirit, a soul, and a body. You're 3 parts. And when you ignore any one of those 3, you will have an issue. So I wasn't just going to put it all just off on my body. What emotionally do I need to fix to make sure? Why did I let myself? Why didn't I catch it myself and do something about it before someone else had to correct me? God didn't make me to be overweight. He did not make me the way that I had put myself in. And I thought about bringing a picture, but I just still too traumatic for me to show you. Maybe I'll show you all sometime. But it was a lot of weight that I had gained. I'm not talking about 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds, but he loved me enough to hold my feet to the fire, and I could have rationalized away the lesson in that. And I could have not changed. And honestly, what happened was when I started changing and getting myself back in line, my husband started exercising. He's like, well, I can't have you, working out and doing all this stuff. And so now he's the one correcting me all the time. Why are you eating that? I don't think that's good. You shouldn't be eating that. Hey, let's go work out. And I'm trying to live up to that now. And of course, our church is filled with CrossFit people. So it's like God just put it all the way around me. But we can't rationalize away our responsibility. This is our temple. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 13. I really just love this scripture. It says, nothing in all the world can be hidden from God. Everything is open before him. And to him, we must explain the way that we have lived. We have to explain the way that we have lived. Why haven't I taken responsibility by now? Think about in your life an area that you have not taken responsibility for. You know it's there. You know it's an issue. You know it's something you need to get a handle of. Why have I not taken responsibility for my life? Because if I take responsibility, then I have to do something about it. If I take responsibility, then I now have to make sure that I do something about it. The first step in taking responsibility is acknowledging our ability to choose. The first step to taking responsibility is going, you know what? I have to acknowledge that this is what I have chosen. It's not grandma, it's not Uncle Joe. This is what I have chosen. Now I have to act. One of the things that I want you to know is you can't get hung up on assigning blame for what's happened to you. If you get hung up on assigning blame, then you will never get hung up on fixing the problem. It will always be about someone else instead of about you or instead of about me. If we become big enough to admit that something is our responsibility, we will be big enough to find a way out of it. And that's what God is asking for us to do. So, what if you are in a relationship and you can't get somebody to take responsibility? Maybe it's in a marriage. Maybe it's at your work. Maybe it's a family member or a friend, and you cannot get somebody to take responsibility for their actions, for what they're doing. Then here's what I recommend. I recommend you set up boundaries because that's what you're responsible for. You're not responsible for someone else's behavior. You're responsible for your own, and boundaries are a good thing. Can you say the buck stops here? So when you go and you're going about your week, you're going about your day, and something crosses your mind where you want to blame, you have to go, the buck stops here. How can I take back responsibility if I've given it away? How do I take it back? The first thing is I have to say this. I am responsible for my behavior. I and I alone am responsible for my behavior. There's no more, he made me do it, the devil made me do it, she made me do it. Hey, Nikki, can you and your husband come up here? I'm going to borrow you for a second. There's no more, he made me do it, she made me do it, it's not my fault. You know, if Adam and Eve wouldn't have sinned, the whole business, I have to take responsibility for my life, me and me alone. Can you say that? Say, I have to take responsibility for my life. The buck stops here. Okay, so here's what I need you two to do. Okay, you two come up here. And this is what, oh, somebody picked that up and I didn't even know. Was it you just now? I was like, Jesus. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that was good. So here's what I want you to know, because oftentimes we get in this whole thing of my rights. This is my right. We even made songs of, I'll do it my way. It's my way or the highway. It's me, myself, and I. There's some country songs about it. What about me? What about I? Y'all know that song. Toby Keith, y'all know that. I'm not a good singer, no. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I know you love your wife, but you have to stand right here. Okay, so here's what we're doing. The three of us are going out on Lake Norman, and we're in a big canoe. And I picked y'all because y'all are CrossFitters, and y'all could actually row better than me. So I'm gonna sit in the back and just kind of chill a little bit. So we're rowing, we're out on Lake Norman, and we have this, yes, switch sides, now row this other side. Okay, so we're out in this big canoe, and here's what I've decided. Out of the graciousness of my heart, I've decided that I am going to divide this canoe into three. And Steve, I am giving you this middle third. This is yours. It's completely yours. I'm giving this to you for free. So this is now your space. Okay, Nikki, this is now your space. I am completely giving this to you. This is all you. Okay, is that good? Aren't I generous to do that? Okay, so this last third I am giving to me. This is my space, and I get to do with it what I want to, because this is my space. So we all three have our own space, right? So at the deepest point of Lake Norman, it's about 130 feet deep. okay? So we're all out, we're having a good time, and I'm like, hey, Steve, how you liking your space? You're loving your space. Nikki, how are you liking your space? It's your space, right? It's not my space. That's yours, because I've given it to you. So what we oftentimes think is, this is my space, this is my life, it has nothing to do with you, so butt out. Stay away. The problem is that, what if I decided in my space, because this belongs to me, we're 130 feet deep, that I'm gonna drill a big hole in my space. A big hole, but this is my space, Steve. Because what I do in my space affects everybody else in my boat. And if I am not careful, what I think is my rights, my choice, my decision, and we're real hung up as a country right now on choice. What I think is my choice affects everybody else. If I had a moral failure, it would affect every person in this room. It would affect this city. It would affect my influence. Dad, what you do affects your whole family. Mom, what you do or don't do affects your whole family. What you do as an employer, what you do as an employee affects everybody else. It is not just your own deal. We are responsible. Responsible. Thank you guys for that. How can I take back responsibility? The first one was, I am responsible for my behavior. The second one, I am responsible for my choices. If you want a different outcome in your life, you're going to have to make a different choice. If there's something that you don't like about the way it's going in your life, think about the choices that you made that got you there and how you can start to make different choices, better choices. The third one, I am responsible for my emotions. I and I alone am responsible for my emotions. You didn't make me mad, so I punched a hole in the wall. Because see, then I'm assigning blame to you. No, my emotions caused me to get out of control and punch a hole in the wall. When I blame you for my emotional state, I give you control. I no longer have control over my life. Did you know that nobody else can make you mad? Nobody can make you angry. Nobody can make you upset. You have to choose that. That's something that you decide. It doesn't matter if someone walked up and kicked you in the shin. You're responsible with how you respond to that. We are responsible with how we respond. I've heard people say before, I'm not happy in my marriage. You chose that. I'm not happy with my life. You chose that. That is a choice that we make on whether we're happy or whether we're not. And oftentimes what happens is we want to hold other people accountable for our loss. That's what revenge is all about. I feel loss, and now I'm holding you responsible for that. And God is saying, it's no one else's fault. You have to take responsibility for your actions. Proverbs 28:13 says this, a man who refuses to admit his mistakes, listen to this, a man who refuses to admit his mistakes can never become successful. But if he confesses and if he forsakes them, he gets another chance. Confess and forsake, and we get another chance. Like I said before, it may not have been your fault, but it is your responsibility. There are so many cards that we can play to justify our situation. And some of them may be legitimate, but they're only legitimate if you give credit to them. Let me throw a few of these cards that we like to throw down. I didn't give because my boss didn't pay me enough. If you only knew the way that I was raised, if you only knew what happened to me growing up, nobody in my office gave me an opportunity to fill in the blank. I am a woman and it's a man's world. I've heard that one before. I have ADD, so I can't do certain things. I hold myself back. Well, I was afraid. I was too busy. I remember trying that one a few years ago, and God said, really, who sets your schedule? We're responsible for our schedule. Let me give you some cards that we play. We can play the poverty card. Well, I'm poor, so therefore I can't. We can play the race card. If you knew what happened to me. We can play the nationality card. Well, if I was born to privilege, if I was born in the United States, then I could have da-da-da-da. We can play the abuse card. If I wouldn't have been abused, the gender card. We can play the age card. Well, I'm too old or I'm too young. If King Asa can be king at 8 years old, I have a feeling that God really doesn't so much care about our age. He just cares about our availability. The weight card. The health card. Well, I can't do this because of my health. Who's in charge of your health? We are. The single parent card. We can't play any of those cards because we give away our power and then we become a victim of our circumstances instead of a victor who walks in the authority that God has given us. None of those cards are cards we want to play. When God thought about you, and planned you and put you on this earth, he wanted to make sure that your responsibility was tested, and that's what our life is. Our life is constantly being tested. Our responsibility is being tested. And here's what I know. If you don't take responsibility for your own life's plan, then somebody else will, and guess what they have planned for you? Not much. God wants us to take responsibility. And again, there may be things that happen to us in life that aren't our fault, but what we do with it is our responsibility. You know, I want to close by telling you something that happened to me this week. And this is tax season, and right now in tax season, it's a good idea to kind of take an inventory. Many of you have been talking to your accountants, and you've been looking through how you've done. You've been doing an audit over this last year. Well, God wants to do an audit of our life, not of our finances, but of our life. And he wants to know, how did you do with what you've been given? This Friday, something happened in my life that was very interesting, to say the least. I got a phone call that my father, whom I had seen, my biological father, who I'd seen once in 15 years, they were removing all his life support. He was in the hospital, and he wasn't going to make it. So they removed his life support, and he passed away on Friday. And I didn't know my biological father very well. He wasn't the dad that he could have been. He wasn't there for me. He didn't protect me through the years. He didn't do all the things that I wished that he could have done or would have done. But he passed away on Friday, and I got the call, and part of me was very thankful because a few months prior, the only time in 15 years I had seen him, I flew up when he was sick. And I sat by his hospital bed. And I didn't choose to be bitter or angry or mad, all of things which our natural human flesh might want to feel. I knew it wasn't going to change the situation, and it certainly wasn't going to be beneficial for me. But I sat in his hospital room by his bed, and my oldest son was with me. And I said, Dad, you need to know Jesus. You need to receive Jesus. He loves you and he cares for you, and you've lived a hard life. And I want to pray for you. And he said, okay, I watched this guy, Joel, on TV. And I said, Joel's a friend of mine, and I'll tell him that you said that. So he prayed the sinner's prayer that day. And I got another call on Friday after the call that he had passed away, and as soon as they took him off life support. And they said, will you officiate his funeral? He didn't go to church. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And what I'm planning on doing is I'm planning on driving up to that funeral home, going in and giving the biggest altar call you have ever seen in your life. Because see, I didn't choose the things that happened to me. They weren't my fault, but I can choose how I respond. If I was bitter or angry or out for revenge or any of those things, I would not have been able to lead him to the Lord. Or I'm just prophesying now, leading a whole room of people to the Lord. It wasn't my fault, but it's my responsibility what I do with what has happened. Will you stand up with me today? What I determined is that a hurt is never wasted if I choose to do something with it. And I feel like that there are some people in here today, you guys can play a little louder behind me because I want for the people in this room today, I'm actually going to, I don't typically call people forward, but I just feel like there's some people that need to stand up here at the altar and say, you know what, God, I feel like there's some areas that I need to take responsibility for, that maybe I have left the responsibility in someone else's hands, and I'm taking that back today. So with every head up, with every eye open, I want you just to come up here in the front. It could be a weight issue. It could be an issue with a family member. It could be an issue in your own life of forgiveness. It could be an issue of, man, just I need to take responsibility for my parenting choices. I need to take responsibility for what I've done to my marriage, my part. My part. Just keep coming and just line up all the way here in the front, because I'm just going to pray over you. And some of you, you just need to go, excuse me, I'm walking by, I'm coming by, excuse me, I'm going to take back responsibility. I'm not going to become a victim. I'm not going to remain a victim. May not have been my fault, but it is absolutely my responsibility with how I respond. I think there's some people that have had an issue with anger. It's time to let it go. The only thing anger is unresolved hurt. That's the definition of anger. Anger is not a primary emotion, it's a secondary emotion. You feel anger after you've already felt another emotion. It's time to take responsibility back. It's time to say, God, I choose to look at my life and say, the reason I am where I am right now is because of the choices I have made, and I am choosing to make better choices. There's some people in here, I feel like that they felt like they were stuck in a dead-end job. You have the right to choose. You're only stuck if you choose stuck. God's not sticking you. Would you just do this? Would you just lift your hands with me? Would y'all just sing that louder over the people? Just let it go.
Feet of Jesus, our affection.
Just envision yourself pouring out anything that doesn't belong, just pouring out at the feet of Jesus. I'm not going to play any card but the Jesus card.
Feet of Jesus, our affection, our devotion, poured out on the feet of Jesus, our affection, our devotion.
Just see yourself literally taking whatever's been troubling you in your hands and just laying it down. Some of you just need to physically take your hands and just show yourself laying it down.
Poured out on the feet of Jesus, our affection, our devotion,
enough is enough. I'm taking my power back. I'm taking back my power in the name of Jesus. I'm taking it back. No more victim, but I just declare victor. No more pitiful, I just proclaim powerful in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name, thank you, Father, for each and every person that is standing up here. Thank you, Father, for each and every person who just says, I want to pour it out on your feet, Jesus. God, I love you so much that I can't let good enough be good enough. I want all that you have for me, Jesus. I want your best. I want a firsthand revelation of who you are. I'm not going to play the blame game anymore. I'm going to let that die like you did on the cross, Jesus. I'm going to own up to my part, my piece. Thank you, Lord, for your goodness. Thank you, Lord, for opening our eyes. Thank you, Lord, that our blind spots aren't blind anymore. Thank you, God, for accountability in our lives where people love us enough to say what may be hard, what may be difficult. Thank you, Lord, that we can say to ourselves the hard things, to put that fire underneath of us to change. God, I thank you for a church that is so open and so ready to receive your word. God, I thank you that your word is just like a light that exposes in us what we need to see. It may not be so easy to see, but we love you so much, Jesus, that we're willing and we are ready right now, right here in this place, in Jesus' name, to make the changes that we need to make for the long haul. Not short change, but long haul. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. Well, band, if you would just continue to play. You guys can stand at the altar and just worship. The rest of you, you can be dismissed. We will see you next week. And I just want to say thank you for your courage. Sometimes it just takes that moment of stepping out so we can have that pillar. That pillar to say, this time, this moment, this place, I made the decision. And I am proud of you. I am thankful for you. And the best is yet to come in Jesus' name.